going to hear from now is one of my best friends. I think I've definitely known him longer than you, okay? But you put Kim ahead of me, so you know. I got friends too. I've known... But
are they as cool as Kim?
No, they're not.
Okay.
I've known Anand for probably 17 years, 19 years, okay? So we have a deep, ancient friendship, and when I don't know where to go and I'm stuck and none of my coaches can help me, this is literally the person I call. And he has reliably helped me move through all kinds of dilemmas that I've struggled with, and I'm so impressed with the way he moves through reality and lives how he coaches. He coaches from his own experience and his own maps, and then he teaches others how to create maps for themselves, not copy his, but inspires them to create maps for themselves. And he co-teaches with us, and he's my best friend, and I love him dearly, and I want you to really listen to what he's saying today, because he's basically a magician in disguise. He teaches you how to do magic spells in your life. We call him the wizard in our house. So you're in for a treat. Pay attention with your heart, your mind, and your body, because he speaks to all three at once. Welcome to the stage, Anand Rao.
Wow. So, magic. Who's interested in magic? Right? So, what is magic? Right? So we talk about the ordinary, and when things happen that we go, oh, yeah, well, that happened. What do we say when something is miraculous or the impossible becomes possible? Go, wow, that was magic. Right? And from my very early trainings in NLP, the idea that your subjective experience can have structure, and we can figure out how to systematically create magic, right? So I made some kind of slides and things last night, and I had a plan. Has everyone made a plan? Anyone made a plan, right? And then in the morning in the car, Annie said to me, "Oh, these guys are really interested in shifting the energy around making money." Is that fair? Right? Yes? Yes? All right. So I thought we'd do that, right? So then the plan is there. However, notice that you can always adapt and adjust what you think towards your outcomes and goals. This only happens if you engage with the world, right? So people sit at home and they go, what's my niche? I don't know what my niche is. I need to find out what my niche is. And the way you find this out is you engage with the world. You engage with the customers. I was saying at lunch. You do not find out your niche by yourself. Your niche literally arrives by engaging with other humans. You do stuff, they write back to you and say, you did this, and you go, really? Is that what I did, right? And so your best marketing department are your customers, right? And this happens, you heard quite a bit today about taking action in the world, right? And this is it. So there's two basic things that I think if you focus on these two things, you will sort out pretty much all of the rest of everything. Now, that's a massive claim, right? So who's thinking, who's got an idea of what you think those two things might be? Just call out. Energy work. Love and serve. Mindset. Intention. Intuition. Emotional regulation. Right. Now, what does all of the blocks, resistances, stucknesses, all of those have in common? Fear, right? Nothing new here yet. So how do we do something that fundamentally goes behind all of these stories, these narratives? It's because I've got this belief and I've got this limiting idea and this thing happened to me and all of those things. How do we clean those up? What's behind all of those, right? So what we're going to do is go to the absolute foundations of some of those things, and they relate very deeply to money, right? So the fundamental thing, I'll just give it to you right at the beginning. The fundamental thing about money is most people have it related to security, right? Safety and security. Is that fair? Right? Now, here's something I've noticed about pretty much anybody who can consistently make a living or make money doing these kinds of things. What did you notice about all these people that came up? The very way they were being in the world. Does that, yeah? They didn't have wobbles or structures, and it doesn't mean they weren't a bit nervous, right? But they had something was solid. Something was present. Something was available. And that's you. That's your authentic energy, your truth, where you live from, right? That's, in the entire program, we talk about this. This is what this is about, right? When that shift happens, we see it pretty systematically, that people suddenly start doing things. Everyone here has had the experience of, hesitating, being nervous, not sure about something, and then by doing no personal development, everyone's had the experience of waking up one day and going, do you know what, I feel different, I'm going to start doing this thing. Yeah? Right? Now, how do we systematically get that to happen? So that's what I want to talk about. Okay? Let's see if this works. Oh, there we go. All right. So I called it the magic of abundance. Get in some magic, get in some abundance, which is always good. All right. So I also want to talk about the nature of existence and reality. Is that okay to throw that in? How many people are fine with like woo-woo and weirdness and strangeness? Now, my background is in physics, theoretical physics. Then I joined the oil industry. Don't hate me. I left, right? And so in a way, I was in energy, and now I'm still in energy. It's just a different kind of energy. Right? So it was engineering, so very practical and tactical, and you need all of that stuff, right? But I really today, in this session, want to go at a different way of going about these things. And we have enough people in the audience that have a felt sense of moving from this physical world, right? And I'll just say, these worlds don't exist separately. When you tune the lens of your consciousness, your awareness, you can attend to many, many different things going on at the same time. If you look around the room and say, where are the red things in the room? Oh, not many. Okay. Where are the red things in the room? Where are the small things in the room? Where are the big things in the room? Where are the flat things in the room? Where are the round things in the room? They were already there, but by shifting our attention and our awareness, we see different things. This is the difference between seeing problems versus seeing opportunity, seeing possibility. Okay? So, money used to be physical. Used to be, if I have $100 and I give it to this person, now I don't have $100, right? And this person has $100, right? So we're used to the idea of transaction in the physical world. But if you think about it, love doesn't work that way, right? If I love someone, I feel more loving, I feel love spreading, and then that person, it ignites love in them. The mathematics of it, you might call it, the algebra is different, right? And money is like that. So how many people have heard the idea of money as an energetic, right? Now, the question is, how do we get from security, like, oh my God, like, what if I don't have any money, what if I don't have enough, scarcity, that kind of mindset, into this place of removing and releasing the aspects of you that are still living in fear. When we do that, then something changes. Someone was talking at lunch about you find your center, you find a core, you find a place to live from, right, which is you, your energy. Okay? So this is we might call the energetic world. Now, using the word spiritual can be a bit challenging because if you get 100 people in a room, then you probably have 100 different definitions, right? So I'm kind of going to say it like this, which is that it's the thing that doesn't change when everything else changes. So if you think about this, since you've been growing up, your thoughts have changed, your ideas have changed, your self-image has changed, your body's changed, your relationships have changed, your environment's changed. All these things, they come and go, right? Yeah? But the you that you are right now sitting there looking out of your own eyes, is you have a sense that's the same you as you were looking out of your eyes when you were a child. That hasn't changed. It's literally independent of anything changing. And Eben's talked about during this summit, I don't know if he probably did it in both sessions, this world is changing faster and faster and faster, right? And if you are caught up in that, if you're identified with these things that are changing and you can't get out of them, you'll experience turmoil, you experience chaos, you'll experience the whirlwind, the tornado. So we're really being called to find that center, that place that doesn't move, that place that doesn't change. Okay, so I want to talk about altered states a little bit, right? Now, in the other session, I asked people, so let's see if we can get it right this time. If you've ever taken psychedelics, right, so don't answer this question, but have you ever taken psychedelics? Don't put your hands up. But notice, because we're on camera, but notice that you went into an altered state, right? And every state of consciousness has within it limits, limits of what you can and can't do, right? Your beliefs around money right now are a state of consciousness. And the capacity to step out of those, even just for a moment, for one instant, into a state that you've never been in before, opens the possibility of not trying to fix your limitations, not trying to wrestle with them, grapple with them, struggle with them. One of my mentors said, you don't need to get in the kitchen sink to do the dishes, right? And this is what a lot of people do, right? Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a model. So all of these models of reality are not real, right? But rather than me telling you about it, I'll give you a little bit of instruction, right? And really, the purpose of a live event like this is to experience something. The purpose of me being here, if I could just write it down, I would just write it down, send you it on a PDF, and you could read it, right? But the point of getting us all here in one room together is so we can experience something together that possibly, it is actually possible on Zoom, but it's not the same, okay? All right, so these are not separate worlds, they are ways of looking at reality. All right, so here's the challenge, which is that in the physical world, right, there's limitations, right? There's, if I want to move 1,000 bricks, it takes 1,000 times the energy of moving 1 brick. That's just a reality, right? Now, how many people want to move forwards in their lives? Right, pretty much everyone, right? But that doesn't mean that when you get to the, the front door, or wherever you are, it does not mean that something's like literally, if you're standing up against a physical wall, right, then you can't move forwards. But this barrier, this idea that we want to move forwards is a metaphor. Does that make sense, right? Now, the thing is, you can understand that cognitively. What we're going to do today in this session is make that a lived, visceral experience of you getting the difference, really tangibly for you, of knowing the difference between imagination and reality. Physical reality, otherwise Annie will correct me. Imagination is reality. Right, so a 4 or 5-year-old doesn't know the difference, right? So 1 minute it's a cardboard box, the next minute it's a fire engine, and the next minute it's a house, right? And we say that, oh yeah, no, we know the difference between reality and imagination, physical reality and imagination, right? But if we're having fears, concerns, limitations, worries, doubts, it means that part of our brain doesn't know the difference. And we need to go back and retrain and teach ourselves that distinction, that difference. And when we do that, that's what we call waking up, right? Waking up to the illusion, this dream this trance that many of us are living in, where in any moment we can't tell that difference between those things, that it really isn't dangerous to call a few people and say, hey, I'm doing a webinar next weekend. I'm going to be teaching on this. I don't really know what my niche is, but I'm going to talk about it. You guys interested? Come. Right? Who gets kind of, if I say that? Thanks for being honest. Right. Okay. So now, so we build limits. We need to build limits because I need to know that if I walk off the edge of here, that I'm going to fall. Right? But these limits don't exist on our minds. Right? So the idea is this is a progressive step towards realizing that the limitations and the thoughts that we have, that I have a barrier in front of me or something holding me back, is in our minds. It's constructed, right? So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so, yes, and I said that already. Money is very closely related to security and foundation. All right, so what kind of barriers, what kind of resistances, stucknesses, who's stuck? Who feels stuck in some area? Yeah? So does that mean that you wake up in the morning and you can't move? Right, so it's a metaphor, right? Okay, who feels held back? Yeah, if someone is really holding you back, you need to call the police, just to let you know, okay? Who feels a struggle, like a struggle within? Okay, what else do we have? What other metaphors for the thing that we perceive as visceral and real that we feel stops us from doing what we want to do?
Deep ruts of neural pathways.
Deep ruts of neural pathways.
Right.
Great. And how sure is your belief and certainty in that stopping you?
When I use tools like, when I use meditation tools, I find that I am less dependent on them because I've created new neural pathways.
Okay. And what if it was possible to help people psychologically and neurologically to lift out of those ruts? Would that be useful?
Be very useful.
Okay, great. All right, here's some other ones. Who feels blocked? Okay. By the way, this is the game, right? So the way you do what's called memory reconsolidation is you bring stuff up safely, right? We don't want to traumatize anyone. Bring stuff up in reality. So we're taking out of the soup of the infinite and creating forms and shapes. Then we play with them, loosen them up, free them up, and then we drop them back into the soup again. Then we go into our life and we find out that we're freer than we were before. This is the game, right? So any of those interventions follows this kind of pathway, right? Who feels I've got a barrier? A few, okay. Held back, we did. Who feels like everything's uphill? Right? Notice your body sensations when you do these, right? So think about this, if you don't currently feel that as real, notice you can actually do them. See what I mean? You can like imagine them, imagine the body sensations, and then come out of them again. I had this client, someone in the program, in the VCA, and she said, I have a barrier, something's stopping me. So I said, okay, we're not going to do anything with that barrier. We're going to leave it there. It's like a brick wall, right? And I said, I want you to make a barrier. And because it's sparkly with gold and red, and it's just, and I, no. I went, make a barrier like the other one, like it's a brick wall. And she goes, yes, it's solid. Right? And I said, do you know you made it? And she goes, yes. So I said, make it green, so it's not the same as the other one. Right? And I said, okay, now that you know you made it, dissolve it. Disappeared. She goes, yeah, okay. So do it again. Right? Did it again. I said, do it again. She did it again. Right. So now some part of her brain is going, hang on a minute, this one's like that one. I'm making this one, I'm dissolving this one, I'm making it, I'm dissolving it, I'm making it, dissolving it. So what's happening to the other one? She said, it's dematerializing. Right. Not I'm dematerializing it, it's dematerializing. Right. So there's a concept within many of the magical traditions, which is called conscious duplication. The reason some of these things run and we feel like they're other, right? Like I'm being held back, right? Where's the agency, right? It's not, some people say I'm holding myself back, but they don't really mean it, right? They've learned the idea that they're holding themselves back, but they feel held back. They feel they're in a struggle, right? So when we duplicate things consciously, we start to realize that we're the ones who are doing this to ourselves. In Zen, who's binding you, right? And the student goes, right, and apparently all the shackles drop off. Have I got shackles up here? No, I have to add that, right? Who feels in a cage or like, I need to break out of my shell? Right? Who's making the shell? Right? Where is it coming from? Okay? This is the waking up process from the dream of limitations, right? Okay, so This is a comment from John Lilly, a consciousness researcher. In the province of the mind, what one believes to be true is either true or becomes true within certain limits. These limits are to be found experimentally and experientially. So when you actually find out if these limits are real when you go into the world and try things. And you heard from people up here, they went and tried things, right, and found out that those limits weren't true. Travis with his $1.2 million a year, right? And he goes, beyond my wildest dreams, I didn't think that was possible. So we just want to open the door to possibility. I think this is why human beings believe in the impossible, like things are impossible. It's because, imagine you're young, right? We're all young in the grand scheme of things. But imagine you're very young and you have this confusion and this chaos. You've been through this experience, and now your world doesn't make sense, right? What are you going to hold on to? What are you going to cling to? I can't, or I shouldn't, or it's not possible. It's a way of being stable. It's incredibly amazing if you think about it. It's just not very useful if we hold on to it after that experience is gone. Okay, so notice what's happening in this conversation while I'm talking to you. Bringing stuff up, dropping it, bringing stuff up, dropping it, bringing up stuff. It's a neural pathway. It's a new neural pathway of coming into stuckness, out of it. Into stuckness, out of it. Into stuckness, out of it. This is the idea. Okay, so we're going to do something now, which is about moving our attention, right? So we're going to start, you might call it an energy clearing. You might call it a visualization. In corporate world, you can't call it hypnosis, so you call it a closed eye process. Same thing, okay? All right. Now, when we close our eyes, what happens is, because we're after lunch, a few of you will fall asleep, and we'll wake you up later. Right? I think this is called like the deep sleep session, or the graveyard shift, or something like that. So, but when we close our eyes, we get a burst of alpha waves, a wave of relaxation, and notice that you change state. So just get yourself comfortable, feet on the floor, and close your eyes. And for those of you that are sensitive, notice the felt shift of the energy in the room. And as you rest and settle, I'm going to do a little practice about letting go of everything that isn't you. The idea is that we collect thoughts, ideas, energies, concepts that are not us, these rules that we took in that are not you, and can drop away. And then imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet to your right. Just a floating rose with a cord or a grounding cord down to the ground. And let that rose pull out of you any energies in your energy space. This is an imagination that is not you, and see if you don't visualize or feel stuff. Let's just call it stuff. Floating out of you, moving out to that rose, down that cord and into the ground. And then imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet on the other side. Let that other rose go. Imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet on the other side. Gently pulling out of all of the layers of your aura any energies that are not yours, don't belong to you, that you took in, felt you had to be consistent with or coherent with. And let that rose pull all those energies out to the rose and let those drain into the ground. And then imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet in front of you. And notice what's really interesting, that you can't be wrong about your subjective experience. And some people go, whoa, the one in front of me pulls so much more out, and leaves space for you to be you. And so fill the space left behind with your own energy. And for anyone who doesn't use an energy metaphor, times and places when you've just felt like you. Most people have this, can you just let me be me? And let those energies go from that rose down into the ground. And then drop that rose and imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet behind you. pulling out towards it any energies that are not yours and that you're ready to let go of. And let that go into the ground. And now imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet above you, pulling out of you any energies that are not yours. Anyone who wants to use this metaphor, really clearing up your crown chakra or the space above your head. This is the place of your own sovereignty, your own connection to divinity. You might call it that. Remember, these are metaphors. You cannot be wrong about your own subjective experience. And then let that rose go off and into the ground. And then imagine a rose 6 to 8 feet underneath you. Many people, when they go for a walk in the forest or on the beach or in nature, find that they can feel their legs, feel their feet, feel the connection to the earth. Feel more solid, more grounded, more coherent. Your body has a natural mechanism of being able to drop what's not yours. And then fill in the space left behind in your body. And also, you can imagine a bubble around you with your own truth, your own wisdom, your own intrinsic intelligence of actually what you already know. And all that noise and confusion of doubts and insecurities and other people's voices can gently fade away. So you can express that truth, live that truth. And the thing about living and speaking your truth, when you clean up like this, is it doesn't take a huge amount of effort, because there's a lot less to overcome. So you can just open your mouth and speak. And in the gaps, just feel the stillness and the space. And when you're ready, just very gently open your eyes. Okay. Now, if you compare this state to the one that you either are normally working in or normally engaging in the world, this is neurological training. This is practice. Took a few minutes. It will be on the recording. You guys will get the recording, right? And every day, if you train your nervous system and your consciousness to come back to this place, then in my worldview, there is a mystical aspect to this. How many people feel lighter, freer, like you let go of stuff, right? There's a premise, which is everything you let go of is gone for good, unless we use our minds to recreate it. Actually, moment to moment, we're constantly dying and being recreated. Right? We know this from science about memories, right? We don't actually they're not kind of filed down there like a HD drive. That actually we pick up little elements of it and then we reconstruct it and we put it together, and then that's our memory. And if we keep doing that a few times, then we go, that's me, that's who I am, right? We don't realize we're the process actually doing that, right? It's actually true that I think within your visual field, you're only actually seeing in focus like a very small part of it, and your brain is just filling in all the rest, kind of retrofitting reality. It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that if you walk down the street, there's never like a bit missing where there should be some reality, right? Your brain just kind of, oh, quick, what should we fill it in with? And it fills it in with something, right? And you can go and see these visual illusions where actually what's filled in can be wrong compared to what's actually in the world. This is what's going on when you miss opportunities and you miss possibility. Is our brain is filling in noise and confusion. Go, quick, let's stick some limiting beliefs in there. Let's see customers shouting, right? And of course, then we feel this limit. I was talking to someone on one of in the VCA, and or it might have been on a summit actually. Anyway, and he said, he said, I'm concerned about how my customers are going to respond to what I have to offer. And so, have you done your customer avatar? Has everyone done their avatar good enough, like first iteration? Like I said, you have to just engage. And he said, I'm worried that they're gonna not like my product. And I said, I'm 100% sure that your customer avatar will love your product, will actually love everything you do. They're like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Like, you're exactly what I'm looking for. And I said to him, how do I know that? Right? Now, how could I know that? How could I be that certain that his customer avatar will love everything that he does? Exactly, right? Because you're creating your customer avatar. You'd have to be mad to create an avatar that doesn't like what you do. Right? And yet, how many of us have done that, right? Right? So this is why it's valuable to do some of these exercises, because they shift your consciousness away from running them into places where it makes sense to feel, barriers and stepping back, to, hang on a minute, they're already out there, right? They're waiting for you. This is what's happening, right? Anybody who's done this will realize this. When you go and make offers, almost certainly, if you were afraid, you'll find you're surprised by how many people say yes. Like, we hear this like almost every few weeks, every time somebody goes from, oh, I'm scared, I'm not sure what to do, to, you know what, I just put on a thing and I made some offers, and they go, I couldn't believe it. Like 5 people said yes, or 10 people said yes. Right? And this is the point, the bit where they say, I couldn't believe it. Right? And this is the point about magic and about things that are weird or miraculous or unusual, is that our incredulity to believe them as ordinary is part of the resistance, right? Because everything you've learned that was once a struggle and is now, you take it for granted, right, has gone through that shift from weird, unusual, unfamiliar, bizarre, miraculous to, now I serve clients, now I make $100,000 a year, now I make $1 million a year, right? These are the shifts. And we've got to get used to the idea that when we unlock and drop our certainty about, so I didn't mean to point you out, you just mentioned certainty. When we drop our certainty, it's a feeling. It's a felt sense of holding or gripping. Right? So we want to work with this fear underneath that. All right, so how many people I know the VCA have, but how many people in the VC have seen me talk on one of the Zoom calls? Yeah? And then who hasn't? Who has no idea who I am? All right, so why don't I start with an introduction? How far are we? My early life, actually, a lot of the other VC might not know this. My early life, I was terrified. I was frightened, scared. Right? And not because of anything bad that happened, right? I had a father who was an orphan and a mother who had left India and come to England in the 1960s, left her family, right? And actually, it's kind of a weird story. So my dad was 41, he wanted to get married. He heard about his 3 sisters in India who hadn't got married. So he went back on the Friday, asked my oldest sister to marry him. She said no, because she was saying no to everybody, right? So he asked my mum on the Saturday, and she said, I've had enough, I'm out of here. So they got married on the Tuesday, right? And then they came back to England on the following Friday, right? Now, most of my life, I considered my parents to be conservative, backwards thinking, and I thought, hang on a minute, 1.3 or 1.5 billion people stayed in India. They were adventurers, right? Now, I could have had that perception at any moment in my life, and yet it took for my 40s to have that crack open, the door open, to something that had been there all along. It's a possibility of how to perceive things, okay? So, familiar with the triune brain? The idea that you come to seminars and you hear information and you've read all the books and you go, yeah, got that. And then in some areas, what happens? You forget, right? Or it doesn't change things. Because I think this is not how human beings are structured fundamentally. Sometimes the mental brain is the last to know, which is why we want to go underneath that, directly to the physiology, directly to the energy, okay? So the rational brain came in late, limbic brain, emotions, and the reptilian brain, the fear, the flight, fight, freeze. So there's actually two more. So flight is when you want to run away. So if you think about something you want to do, like taking action, think about, do you feel like distract or try and run away? Is that you? Do you go, I'm going to attack this problem, right? And then you have to build up enough energy. But the question is, who made the villain in the first place that you have to attack, right? The third one, freeze, like I will just, like if I just pretend it's not happening, right, then it will be fine, right? We have a few of those. And then flop is a more extreme version where people dissociate or just shut down. These are actually trauma responses. And fawn is that we just give in to the next person's thoughts and then we don't have a self because we're terrified of the conflict or the difference or the distance. So as in that last exercise, as we drop other people's energies more and more, what you see is that people start to become their own energy, right? And then rather than having to use lots of kind of motivation and do like crazy moves and all that kind of stuff, right? You just start doing the things that you want to do and life becomes a lot easier, right? This is the idea that we don't want to fight with our internal resistances. We want to recognize them, wake up to them, resolve them, complete them, and then the nervous system resets, and then our life just flows better, right? Okay, so we're going to do a process now, because all of this is all very well in terms of head knowledge, but it's actual processes that make a difference. And my sense is, because we've got a room full of people, this will be quite powerful, way more than on Zoom. Right, so Stephen Kessler took the work of somebody called John Parakas, and earlier than that, someone called William Reich, who could sense these kind of subtle energies, and he made this map, right? Now, in the early psychological literature, all of these things were pathologized. So if someone dissociated, if they kind of left their body, right, if that makes sense, right? They just kind of dissociated, that would be called schizoid, right? And the next one we call oral, and the next one we called masochistic, and then psychopathic defenses. And these are all kind of body defenses, right? But what this guy did, Stephen Kessler, which I think is genius, is he says it's just ways of the human being trying to be safe, right? And it's actually at the more fundamental level, at that kind of animal level, than our kind of neocortex and our thinking brain. Right, so I want you to look at these, right, and I'll go through them, and just recognize the ones that you recognize. Does that make sense? Right. So who here, when they get into a stressful situation, their like habitual response is to either kind of dissociate or like zone out, right? Oh, I just won't think about it. Next thing you know, you're in front of the fridge with a cake in your hand, and it's like, what happened, right? Or they actually physically leave the situation. So I'm at my desk, do you know what, I'll just go and sit on the couch and watch the next episode of Netflix and I'll come back later. So they actually physically leave. Who has some of those? We probably all have some of all of them, right? All right, next one is who feels like when they're by themselves, right, and they've got to put that program out, that they feel like, oh, I need to cling to somebody, or if I just had some support next to me. We still, as human beings, we need support, right, and we need community. Right? But if this is very strong, for me, this one was very strong. So I had the first two, right, which are kind of the worst, right, if you think about it. And what I said about my parents was there was nothing wrong with them. It's just that because they were traumatized in their own ways, then the capacity for an animal, like a child born, to have that early attachment connection and feel safe and secure in the world was not there. It's just absent. So Sasha talked about the wabi-sabi and the gift and the curse, right? Now, because I didn't feel safe and I felt terrified, what happened with my energy is it went out into the world. It just left my body, went all the way around, and it was checking for danger, like constantly, right? That is now a superpower for me, right? So if I look at somebody over there, what starts to happen is my energy starts to change, and I can sense and feel the person. This actually works thousands of miles away. We're going to get to this maybe in the late 2030s. I might talk about that. I think I'll talk about it now. In the late 2030s, I think we won't do any of this stuff. It will be like Netflix and just changing reality tunnels. And the kids and the consciousness will be so fluid and dynamic that we'll recognize that we're living in reality tunnels that we don't want to be living in. And people say, well, why are you watching that channel? Like, that, if you don't like the movie, watch this other one, right? And all of this is about loosening up our neurology, training our neurology to have our consciousness fluid enough to be able to do this now. This is the game, right? This is the leading, for me, the cutting edge game. Annie and I with the inner game, yes, it is the emotional realm and the mental realm, but actually, you're literally getting to become a different kind of human, right? And for those of you that have kids, you'll see some of these already exist, right? They're here already, right? So, all right. So who has the merging one? So on the merging one, I tried to learn to skydive when I was 29. And I'd jump out of the plane, and I was holding on to the instructor, like accelerated free fall, right? And the minute he'd let go of me, I'd black out. It's not a good idea in skydiving, by the way. right. And the next thing I knew, he'd like come back, and I see this like fist tapping on my visor. I was somewhere else, so he'd have to pull the chute. It's like, okay, I guess we'll go again, right? So anyway, 29 jumps later. I guess, looking back, I guess I was quite determined and upset about not being able to do it. But I was able to some degree get the hang of it, right? But I had this clinging thing. If somebody else is not with me, I can't do it, right? And if you think about what that is then that means you're at the whims of other people to a large degree, including that one customer out of 50 who says, I didn't like what you did, right? I went to a public speaking, when I was learning public speaking, and I went to this talk, and the trainer told us this story. It's a second-hand story, but there was a guy in the front row, and he's like this. Through the whole thing, right? And the trainer was kind of getting nervous and going, like, what am I doing wrong? So he just forgot about the whole group, and he's like focusing on this one person who's right. And so at the end of the talk, the guy comes up to him and goes, thank you very much, that was excellent. Right? And it's just how he was. Right? We make stories up, right? We make stories up in our minds. Okay, so who has the hunkering down one? They're like the horse, and they just put, like when they try and move forward in their lives, some part of them just like, no, I'm not moving forward, right? Have that one, okay? We probably don't have many of these in here, right? They certainly wouldn't admit to it. But when they get scared, they attack, right? I'm assuming everyone knows somebody like that, right? I worked in this oil company. Like I said, don't hate me. And the CEO would bark at me. He was like, what are we doing? What are we doing, Anand? Why are we doing that? What are they doing? What's happening? Like that. And my nervous system would normally get kind of frightened. And as I learned to center and ground as we worked through this is what's going to happen, is that I kind of thought, oh, he's scared. He's not dangerous. He was aggressive, right? He has no intention of hurting me. If you're in a situation where someone really is trying to hurt you, then you do need to consider that separately, right? But most of the time, this is not the case, right? And I said, come over here, George. Let me show you, right? And it was like the steam came out of his ears, his energy came down from here, back to his center, and he calmed down. This is, if you want to know about this, the other person is pinging you to find out if you'll stay there. And often what can happen is one person gets aggressive, the other one leaves their body, and now this person doesn't feel safe, that person doesn't feel safe, this person attacks more, and now we're into this kind of crazy loop, right? And if you can stay centered and grounded, they're pinging you to check if you're there, and when they check that you're there and you're stable, they tend to calm down, right? Which of course takes courage and practice and attentiveness and awareness to do that. Okay, and the final one is the rigid one. Who does that one, which is like, if I just don't move and don't do anything and nothing changes, then I'll feel safe, right? Thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. How many people have done the TAT pose? A few people, Licia is definitely. All right, so Tapas Fleming came up with this method or process. So now we're into emotional regulation tools, because it's all very well knowing about all of these, but then what do you do with it, right? What do you actually do? Because theoretically knowing about it is not the same as doing it in the body, right? So as I talk through these, did you notice your body, you had body sensations, right? You got bodies? Just checking. Yeah? All right. So you had body sensations and feelings, right? And as I talked through them, you probably had different body sensations and feelings because we're changing our attention, we're changing this lens that we look through. When you look through a different lens, you see different things in reality. Okay? So the pose is like this, and you put one hand on the back of the head, where the occipital lobe is, so where the skull is, right? You put your thumb and your ring finger on either side of your nose. Remember, you can't be wrong about your subjective experience, so just notice whatever you experience on either side of your nose, right? And the middle finger goes in the center of the forehead. So one hand on the back. Yeah, go on, join in. Thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. And take a breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and listen to these words. All of the origins of any situation where you felt you had to run away, allow those feelings to come up and clear them through this holding this pose. All of the origins of moments when you felt you had to run away, when you felt scared, when you didn't feel like you could face and attend to the present moment. Notice you're safe here in this moment, sitting here, holding this pose, feeling body sensations. You can allow those to heal, release, and clear now. All of the associations of running away can be replaced with centeredness, groundedness, presence. And as all of that shifts and change, your executive function, your capacity to use the decades of experience that you've had since these things were set up can come online as you evolve as a human being. Take a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then relax your hands, because it can be a bit tiring if we do all 5 in one go. Shake it out, right? Stomp a little bit where you're sitting, right? And who's feeling an energy shift from doing that? Okay, now, because when I'm looking at all you guys, right, from here, I'm using my conscious mind, right? So I can attend to things. I can only attend to a small amount of what's going on at once, right? So if I look at Sue, then I can't see. I'm getting old. Some people over there, right? But it's a very small percentage of what's actually happening. So I'm actually doing something else that I encourage you all to do, which is I'm sensing, feeling through my whole body the presence of everyone here. And when you do that, and you do that with your clients, they don't just feel seen through your head and your eyes, right? They feel your whole being, right? Now, the flip side of that is you have to get used to it, right? Because you can imagine where I came from, like trying to attend to 100 people at the same time was overwhelming. So here's what you do, and we'll do that before we do the next one, which is close your eyes for a second, or you can do this with your eyes open, and let your awareness expand. Give yourself more space. And let your peripheral vision spread out, which triggers parasympathetic relaxation, does something to the vagus nerve. But the felt sense is one of, Most people can notice there's a change, right? And so, notice how much more attentive you can be, how much more alert and aware you are in this moment, to the present moment. I have a theory, this is probably, it might be true. So let's say we were out in the plains, right? I actually take all theories like that, as they might be true, they might not, right? Imagine we're out on the plains in the savannas, right? Most of the time, we'd have our awareness spread out, right? We're chilled and relaxed and kind of hanging out. And then every now and then there might be a danger or a concern or a fear, and now we have to narrow and focus, right? Now, if you think about what a phone does, right, all day long, this might be basic old physiology. Take time every day to do that. If you live in a city, go to a street where you can see all the way to the end, right? If you can get out in nature, even better, and let your consciousness spread out, right? Because most of the time, if you think about your life, 99.999999% of it is safe. There's no real physical danger happening. So we want to retrain our nervous system to be able to stay in this state. It'll change your life, right? Anyone on the programs on the VCA that have done this for 2 or 3 weeks, these kind of exercises, they shift their fundamental way of being in the world. And when your level of safety goes up, what happens? Loads of things, right? More fun, it's easier to do stuff. You see through the illusion of the constructions of terrors and fears and concerns that we're making. So let's do the others. All right, so one hand on the back of the head. Thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose. Middle finger in the center of the forehead. And think about situations where you felt you couldn't do things by yourself. It's not the same as community, but the terror of not being able to rely on oneself and trying to grab or cling to something or someone else is what's giving our power away. And allow that response that's coming up now to heal, release, and clear. Noticing that you're present here, just breathing in and out, resting in an increasing state of peace. And replace those moments of absence of trust in self with deep trust in the fact that you are you, and that you've coped with everything that's happened to you that allowed you to make it here. Breathe through those body sensations. Allow that energy to drain away through your legs or however it dissipates. And then replace that space with the awareness, the awakeness of being here. Relax your hands and gently open your eyes. Okay, who's feeling like more chilled and still and peaceful and restful? Yeah? Right. It's interesting in a group. It's kind of hard not to, because we kind of pick up the vibe of everyone else, right? So we're working on our energy systems at a level way beyond just our conscious minds. Okay, so let's do the next one. It's a really important one for taking action. Many people have an aspect of them where the only thing they could do in the situations they were in was to block, stop. It's like, how do I prevent anything else from happening? Right? This is a fundamental one. Some of you will go through quite a big shift on this one, I'm guessing, that it won't be dramatic in the sense of, Tony Robbins. So I shouldn't say that. But it will be significant. Right? So, one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger, middle finger in the center of the head, and think about when you try and prevent more things from happening because you feel overwhelmed or there's too much going on. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel those body sensations now. We're repatterning in the now at the level of neurology. Any situation where, and this is often from quite young, we had to try and attempt to prevent what was happening. And breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, knowing that you're safe here in this moment. You can abide in this state of stillness and peace in this moment. And then gently relax your hands. And this one, it might have unblocked a fair amount, so just kind of shake it out. Actually, maybe even just stand up and have a good shake and then sit back down. There we go. Right. A little bit of this might work. Yeah. Okay, and grab a seat. Now, there's not much talk in this piece, right? But there's kind of an option, right? Which is, Evan talked earlier about not wanting what might be called spiritual entertainment, right? But, we have to do something while we're here on this planet, right? But for me, this is the highest leverage thing we can do with other human beings. Get them back into a state where they're centered, grounded, peaceful in themselves, living from their own energy, right? So I kind of thought about, okay, what do we do here? We bring it back to money, which we will do in a minute after we've done this. But this bodily sense of stable grounding and foundation in self creates the capacity to individuate as well as a human being. Does that make sense? Right? You can be yourself, right? Because now you're not afraid of conflict or challenge or being different from others. So you can actually be unique in your own way. It's almost like, have you ever seen a spider plant? You know, it grows like a spindle out like this, right? And then on the end, there's like a sprout. And it's still relying on the base plant, but eventually it gets kind of heavier and heavier, and it comes to the ground and it grows its own roots. And then it doesn't need the connection to the parent plant anymore, right? If you notice anyone who's built a business, right, they can have fears and anxieties, but some part of them has figured this out, that they're separate and individuated and grounded in their own foundation. Because what I've seen is if you try and make money before you've done that, right, people go, I don't know, I make lots, but then it all goes away, right? Because they're staying consistent with the energetic of the belief that there isn't enough, right? So as we start to shift all these kinds of things, it looks like we're doing, hang on, what are we doing here? This isn't to do with money. It's directly to do with money, right? We want to move from that idea of money being a physical thing that we trade to energy that flows to a sense of connection and harmony with existence. Now, my belief is that this is one of the highest leverage things that's behind what every client asks you for, which is peace of mind. Being able to live your own life, make your own choices. Yeah. Okay, let's do the next one. This will be a fun one. Okay, so one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. And we'll just do this two ways. Think about times when you get scared and your temptation is to attack, right? Notice that, how that feels ungrounded and unstable and weird and scary, okay? And then take a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And now, let's do it the other way around. All of the origins of when you had to face somebody who was aggressive, notice your body response, can heal, release, and be cleared now. Whenever it was in history, whenever it was in time and space, if you're into past lives, even if it was in a past life, any situation where you came up against conflict, disagreement, challenge, opposition, will necessarily bring up body sensations. So breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and reset. Feel your alignment, your feet on the floor, and your connection to your intuition and your capacity to be present in that situation. And then relax your hands. Who had some shifts on that one? Yeah, that's because if you think about how we were socialized, we weren't taught to redirect our energy. Someone just tried to block it, right? So, this is going to be the challenge of parenting in the future, I think. Okay, last one for this piece. Right, rigid pattern. This is an interesting one because it's about inhibition as well. How many people, when they get in front of a camera... Yes? No? All right, okay. All right, so think of that context or another situation where you just want to feel free to be able to behave and interact how you want to. A certain looseness of being able to just be, right? And now, put one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger. This is discipline, right? Going through systematically. And then feel those moments when you feel inhibited, where your body tries to stop or prevent. And rather than joining in with it, breathe. Take a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. All of the origins of all the years of how you've habitually run your nervous system in this way to prevent an imagined, perceived danger can heal, release, and clear now. Feel those muscles that you would habitually have used to inhibit or stop you taking action can resolve into alignment, centered, grounded, present beingness. Think about all those future moments, that future state where you'll feel lighter, freer, able to take action and more in flow. There's a direct connection between you flowing and money flowing and clients flowing towards you. And when you're ready, relax your hands, shake it out. This one, definitely stand up and have a good pat the whole body down. Pat out those inhibited half-run muscle actions. Close the loop on all that inhibition and take up more space. Feel freer, bigger, wider. There we go. Okay, and then grab a seat. Now, have a sense of the subtle shifts that are happening, right? How many people have had like a, one of those big epiphany wow moment type things, right? Sometimes they happen. Has anyone had one of those? One over here, right? This kind of work doesn't do that, actually. This is more like the kind of thing where one day you were like, stuck in something, and then the next day you woke up and went, I think I'll sign up for that stand-up comedy course. That kind of thing, right? This is more like that. To me, it's more elegant, and it's more effective, and it's working on what might be called your ontology or your way of being. Now, if there are serious stuck places in the psyche and all kinds of things like that, there's not a substitute for like one-to-one attention when it's needed, right? Especially in serious trauma. But what we're doing here is we're taking the techniques from trauma resolution, all those kind of serious areas, and we're utilizing them because they're very effective, right? This is something you can do in any moment to reduce the charge on the resistance to taking action. Can you see how powerful that can be? Right? If you just did this for 2 weeks, you'd practically be a different kind of human in a lot of contexts, a lot of situations, a lot of behaviors would start to change. Yeah? All right. So, here's what we just did, is we deliberately took our attention and our intention, and we moved it in a way that we don't normally do. We did something new. And thank you for kind of just joining in, right? Because this is what this is what we're gonna need in this world, is the willingness to go into something and just find out what happens, right? Checking that it's safe enough. This is kind of the game, right? So there is a power of presence and witnessing in the capacity to clear limiting conditions, because limiting conditions come up as resistances, body sensations, thoughts, feelings, reactions, etc. We're pulling that up, like I said earlier. We're doing something to it, either relaxing, releasing. These kind of energy work does some shifts as well. And then when it goes back in the soup, it goes back differently, right? And therefore, when we're back in that situation, we might never have got to the root cause and why am I held back? How many people ask themselves the why? You've heard from Andy, the lounge of why. Why am I held back? Why is there something stopping me? Right? This is a cause and effect model to, in a car, if it's broken, you go, why is the car not working? Oh, the carburetor's broken, we replace it. Human beings don't work like that. This is the biggest misunderstanding from classical therapy, I think. Let's get to the root of things, rather than you are behaving like this. So Alfred Adler, who was a contemporary of Freud and Jung, he made a very bold statement. He said, we do not suffer the events of our lives. We make out of them what suits our purposes. Right? And this is this empowering stance from, we can either utilize these events to say, I'm helpless, I can't do this is not possible. Right? And some people do, and it's kind of interesting, other people, post-traumatic growth, once those energies are cleared, they say that challenge, you heard it here, right? People have had incredibly difficult challenges, and when you resolve the energetics on those, they tend to shift into gifts and talents and capacities. He actually was talking about trauma. He basically said there is no trauma, which is it's an extreme statement to make. But he said, we do not suffer the events of our lives. We make out of them, we make meaning out of them what suits our purposes. So if you look around the room, for example, look at all the blue things. It's going to be a test. I'm going to get you to close your eyes in a second. So look around the room, see all the blue things. Got it? Okay. And now, close your eyes. Right. Now, how many people here were wearing green? Right, open your eyes. Right. Apart from the one who knows she's wearing green. Right. And here's why. Here's why. It's because when we take our attention in one place, it's called attentional blindness, we take it off what might be right in front of us, possibility, opportunity, right? Because we're too busy looking at this other thing, right? This is what we're doing today in this session, is loosening this up. We're going to go kind of somewhere kind of limitless in a minute. How many people have seen that film, Limitless? Right? So in the beginning, he has to take this pill, which is kind of like these exercises, to loosen everything up, to loosen the grip of the certainty of what we might think. Right? But after a while, there's a way of being in the world which is never stayed in the same river twice. Every experience you have is new and fresh. The world wakes you up. In Zen, it's called to be awakened by the 10,000 things. Back then, 10,000 didn't mean 10,000. It meant, well, that's big enough. It must mean everything, right? So imagine before this weekend, right, you hadn't had the experiences you had yesterday and today, so you have been changed and you are different, right? Because now you have these experiences, right? To the extent that you can loosen up and let go of, and the weird thing about this, you can do it historically, backwards in time. If you loosen up and release, the fixed ideas you have had in the last couple of days, all of the events and the experiences that you've had during these 2 days become available to you. It's the book that Eben was talking about, when you read the book and then you come back 3 years later, and then it's like, oh my God, that's like, where was those pages? I don't remember that bit, right? All right, so there are 2 tracks in NLP. One is what stops you. Right, this is the barriers, the resistances, and all the rest of it. And I've shown you directly what you can do with these things. So every day you can go, okay, what stops me? And you can do a process. Either havening is another one, which you might do later, or TAT, to release and clear those things. Right? But as I said at the beginning, you do not have to get into the kitchen sink to wash the dishes. The example for this is when you get a new phone number, right? How much time do you spend unlearning the old one? Right? So if someone comes to you and they say, I don't know how to learn, I don't know how to play the violin. And you don't say to them, where did this start? Did it start in your childhood? You go, no, you don't know how to play the violin because you haven't played the violin. This is literally the direct correlation to all this stuff we're learning in business and in our things. There are no inner issues on this front when we clean this up, right? Literally, you haven't patterned it, right? So think about when you learn to drive or learn to ride a bike. How did it feel? All right, scary. But how was it actually? Yes, there was fear, fine, right? But notice the process of when you got the hang of it. Assuming you got the hang of it, right? Right? It's awkward, it's clumsy, right? It's uncertain, it's like, I don't know, there's too many things, moving parts, there's, video, and there's Facebook advertising, and there's cameras, and I don't like it, There's all of that. There's talking to people. How many people here like people, actually? Just checking. Right. So it should be good, you can go out and talk to some people, right? So, now what we're going to do is we're going to go full tilt woo-woo. Okay? And go way off the map, pretty much guarantee that everybody here has not done this before. Okay? So, in order to learn, you don't actually need to know, understand, or make sense of anything. All right, so I'm going to skip these quotes and go straight to this quote. Oh, go on then, take a picture. The more you know, you realize you know nothing. And things we don't understand always appear to us as the most mysterious, and life is a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved. All right. So Ken Wilber has this quote: "We're like tourists in a jungle, hacking our way through the underbrush, not realizing that by simply climbing a nearby tree, we could gain a whole new perspective on the jungle." So we're going to climb. This is called the 7 planes of existence, and I'm not going to explain it. You don't need to know it, you need to understand it, and it does not need to make sense. Right? Are you willing to play? Right. You can't be wrong about your subjective experience. So I'll explain a bit as we go within the meditation. Close your eyes. Actually, open your eyes just for 1 second. Right. So these are 7 planes, and each one has these subplanes. You can see, if you can see in between the 7, there's some subplanes. So they actually go 1 to 7 that way, but each one goes from 7 to 1. So 7 is the lower of any particular plane, and then it goes up to 1, right? So you don't even need to know that. Just notice what happens in your experience, okay? So close your eyes. And we're going to come in at the middle of the emotional body, which is just feel your emotions, which is called the 4th subplane of the astral. Just feel the energy directly. If you have to pretend, pretend. And then we're moving to the 3rd subplane of the astral, which is a little bit lighter, higher frequency emotions. See what happens. Feel the room. The 2nd subplane of the astral, lighter, more refined emotions. Attend to what you're feeling. And then the 1st subplane of the astral, which is the loftiest emotions. And then the 7th subplane of the mental. Notice how thoughts are thinner, rarer, less refined, less dense. The 6th subplane of the mental. The 5th subplane of the mental. The 4th subplane of the mental. And then off the top of thinking and into stillness. Called the 3rd subplane of the causal. Into pure being, the 2nd subplane of the causal. Allow your consciousness to shift into the 1st subplane of the causal. This is the highest level of the individual self in this system. And then some of you will imagine this coming out the top of your head. Other people will just rapidly expand. Imagine leaving the separate self that you are and into the 7th subplane of what's called the Buddhic plane. Interconnectedness, vast interconnectedness. A space of pure love, kindness, generosity. The fabric that holds all human beings and all beings. The 6th subplane of the Buddhic, climbing to the 5th subplane of the Buddhic, to the 4th, the realm of the gods, the 3rd subplane of the Buddhic, the 2nd, to the top of the Buddhic plane. Notice your subjective experience, the spaciousness, the fabric of the connection of for all human beings and all beings on this planet and beyond. And then into the seventh subplane of the Atmic, a place of miracle healings, the place where the fabric of reality is put together, where your soul is cohering and putting your experience together moment to moment. This moment, and the next, and the next. The sixth subplane of the Atmic, the fifth subplane, higher and higher frequency, where intentions have incredible magical and mysterious and mystical power. And set a gentle intention for yourself, some wish, some desire from your highest intrinsic intelligence to happen instantly. Give permission and openness to your own wisdom, your own intelligence, for this to be so. And all history that wanted continuity can drop away. It's that state I talked about in the late 2030s when you can just jump realities into the new one, turn a corner, and leave the old world behind. You can still have access to everything you need from it, but you don't have to live from it anymore. And bring in brightly your future possibility. More truth, more alignment, more freedom, more ease. Deep reliance on your own being, no matter what happens. As we come down through the levels, integrating this instantaneous change into all of the levels of manifestation, coming back down into a new reality. The sixth subplane of the Atmic, the seventh, back into the Buddhic plane, the first. Recognize your connection with all beings. To the second, to the third, to the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. And as you come back into your individual self, bring with you this sense of abundance in the physical with money, in relationship with love, and feel this freedom and flow of connection. And coming out of the causal state, the second subplane of the causal, the third, back into the mental realm with more refined, clarified thoughts, clarity of mind, dropping all old, out-of-date thoughts. Heavier thoughts can just drop away. Fourth subplane of the mental, the fifth, the sixth, coming back fully embodied into the seventh, and feel your emotional body. This process untangles loops of emotions. People say it clarifies your emotions so you can have each one fully for you, your emotions, not other people's. And you might find that over the next few days and weeks that you have so much more fluidity and flow in your being, in your thought, in your emotion, and you might start to feel physically healthier, brighter, more vibrant, more clarity, and a sense of ease that we were designed for, our bodies can return to. A sense of joy, as you heard before, play and curiosity. And with that in mind, just gently open your eyes. And if you want to, you can set that intention for tonight and the next 3 nights. For some of the time when you're sleeping, your mind and your brain can continue this process of moving you more and more towards you just being you in the world. And when you do that and you let yourself shine, what you'll find is that when you turn up with your clients, this miracle continues to them. You start to see more miraculous change in the individuals that you connect with as your light lights that light in them. So, thank you guys. Thank you for the time. I'll see you again soon. Okay. Very welcome. Thank you.